And in contravention of prevailing case law, the magistrate judge found that this was not a case that involves a minor victim, even though there's testimony and evidence that there were minor victims who were transported on his floorboards. And he also described how Kilmar asked her for nude images when she was only 15 years old. No wonder the Democrats love this dude. Also, the judge didn't even care about the orders of protections that Jennifer Vasquez, his wife now, filed against him. Trump prosecutors shred the lower level judge involved in that criminal Kilmar case. We remember he's got a bunch of cases going on because they sued the ACLU lawyers to protect him because they love him so much in various jurisdictions. But what happened here is this is the criminal case out of Tennessee. And Trump's prosecutors, the DOJ, have just submitted this motion to revoke the lower level magistrate judge's order of release. The lower level judge said to the defense and to the prosecution that Kilmar is not a flight risk, that he's not a danger, that you guys just made everything up. He's not a human trafficker. He doesn't beat his wife. They used basically no evidence at all, made this ruling, said that he was going to be released. Then Trump's Homeland said, well, if justice doesn't have him, then Homeland is going to take him and we're going to deport him. So then Kilmar's defense team actually asked the judge to reverse the release and hold him pending the outcome of this criminal trial. Now Trump is saying we should revoke the magistrate judge's order of release. Okay, so Kilmar's in custody. His lawyers want him in custody, but Trump and the DOJ, they do not want this judge's hack decision that we read through that was like, Kilmar's amazing. He like makes pupusas and he loves, children and other things. He allowed the defense to make their case and ignored the prosecution. And now they're saying, you done screwed up, judge. Here's what they wrote into the court. Back to the District of Tennessee. This is the criminal case against Kilmar wife beater Abrego-Garcia. It says for years, judge, and in courts, we've got lower level judges and higher level judges. We often think about this like as district level judges and courts of appeals judges, and then from the courts of appeals, like a Supreme Court judge. But really, even in the district court judges, you've got lower level judges called magistrate judges in some locations in federal court. You've got, in some states, they'll call them commissioners. They're not actual like full-blown judges that are confirmed by the Senate and appointed by the president and all those things, but they handle a lot of the more basic stuff that's coming through and kind of assist, and then it gets assigned to a more official judge later in the line of the case. So they're saying this judge's order, right? They're kind of appealing it to the higher judge and also back to the same judge, saying, you screwed up. You denied the government's motion for pretrial detention. And here's how you botched this. For years, Kilmar wife beater conspired to smuggle aliens, unaccompanied children, trafficked in children, firearms and narcotics into the United States in furtherance of a transnational criminal operation. On May 21, a federal grand jury indicted Kilmar for serious felony offenses related to his participation in the conspiracy. And pursuant to the Bail Reform Act, the defendant should be detained pending trial because there is no combination of bail conditions that can reasonably assure his appearance at a future court proceeding. And this lower level judge, this magistrate judge, erred factually and legally in denying the government's motion for pretrial detention. Here's how. First, the lower judge erred in determining that the United States was not entitled to a detention hearing. Notwithstanding our evidence, we presented preponderance of the evidence to the contrary, which is the very low standard. Remember, at these hearings, at this stage in the proceedings, we're not at beyond a reasonable doubt yet. That's for the trial. So the government just has to come in here and just make like a pittance of a showing. 51%, more likely than not, okay, looks like he did it. Good enough. And in contravention of prevailing case law, the magistrate judge found that this was not a case that involves a minor victim, even though there's testimony and evidence that there were minor victims who were transported on his floorboards. Second, the magistrate judge also failed to properly consider all of the evidence. This evidence showed that Kilmar is both a danger to the community and a risk of non-appearance at future court proceedings, but illegals get different standards than you. I mean, if you go through these processes, man, you have like a speeding ticket that you forgot to pay. They're like, oh, well, you ignored another court, so you're in custody forever because you're a flight risk. You have failure to appear on your record. Kilmar, though, illegal alien, judge is like, nah, that's pretty good. He says he's honorable and Van Hollen vouches for him, which cannot be reasonably mitigated by even the strictest conditions. Now, the judge repeatedly failed to assign proper weight to sworn testimony by government, federal agents, and witnesses, and found, without a sufficient basis, that the described statements of co-conspirators and other corroborating evidence were all unreliable. We read through some of it. It was ridiculous. The judge also failed to properly consider the evidence of Kilmar's past domestic violence conduct that was filed by his wife twice, his incentives to flee, his lack of ties to the community, lack of evidence regarding the efficacy of conditions of release, and more. The judge failed to weigh sufficiently all the factors under the law and goof. Now we know what happened. In this case, a grand jury indicted him, 2 counts, unlawfully transporting aliens and conspiring to transport aliens. They say that Kilmar was a member and an associate of MS-13, a transnational criminal organization that engages in a bunch of crimes: violence, trafficking, narcotics, alien smuggling, all throughout the North and Central America. Now, beginning in 2016, Kilmar joined a conspiracy to transport illegals for money and gain. He and one of his co-conspirators routinely picked up aliens in Texas, Houston, after the aliens had illegally crossed the border. In fact, defendant and the co-conspirator then transported the aliens in interstate commerce all around the country. They also began working with another co-conspirator, CC2, also a witness. In addition to illegally transporting aliens, they also trafficked firearms and narcotics from Texas to Maryland. Now, the indictment also alleged that Kilmar and his co-conspirators routinely transported aliens in an unsafe manner. They used reconfigured vehicles with aftermarket unattached seating rows, and they transported children on the floorboards of their vehicles, right? Just shove them down in there. They can fit under the seats. They'll be fine. It's only 15 hours. According to the indictment, another co-conspirator, number 6 now, received reports that Kilmar abused female undocumented aliens like a disgusting pervert, and caused this person to report these allegations to the other 2 who admonished him, stop molesting the women. The indictment further described attempts by Kilmar and his co-conspirators to evade detection. When they were traveling, they often varied their transportation routes and routinely confiscated the aliens' cell phones to prevent them from contacting anyone. They also routinely devised and employed fake cover stories if they got stopped. And they say during the conspiracy, he illegally transported aliens over 100 trips between Texas and other states. And they just allowed it. The FBI caught him that one time, like, nah, let him go. Didn't even give him a driving on a suspended license. You try driving without a license or driving on a suspended or revoked license because you don't have one. See what happens to your car. Don't do it. On November 30th, the defendant was driving an SUV carrying undocumented aliens after law enforcement stopped the vehicle for speeding. Didn't get a ticket for that either. Knowingly and falsely lied to a state trooper that he and the passengers, and you would get charged with false reporting in that in many other instances, for coming from St. Louis where they had been allegedly been doing construction work for 2 weeks. License plate reader data showed, nope, lied. In the preceding 12 months, he had actually been to Houston within the week leading up to this. Wasn't anywhere near where he said. Shortly after the traffic stop, he reported to his co-conspirators, I've been stopped by law enforcement, but I got released from the scene. They got his records. Now, here is something that played at the hearing, right? This was admitted at the hearing that the judge just ignored. Trooper says, where are you working at? Kilmar says, where? St. Louis, Missouri. Missouri? Yes, sir. Where did you say you were coming from? Kilmar. So I come in from St. Louis, Missouri. My project. The project is over there. So right now it's done. 2 weeks over there. Okay? So right now I'm going back home, says Kilmar, all lies. Now, the government's motion for detention, they say on June 6th, Kilmar made his initial appearance. The same day, the government filed a motion for detention, and the judge conducted a hearing to determine whether the government could keep him detained. During the hearing, the government brought in this guy, Special Agent Peter, and he offered a bunch of evidence: exhibits, body-worn camera, evidence of the traffic stop, a picture of a roster of names and dates of birth of the people in the SUV during the traffic stop, and also submitted the orders of protections, the both of them that we read here, which was Kilmar beating the crap out of his wife. The government's evidence at the hearing strongly supported the allegations in the indictment. Judge didn't care. Special Agent Joseph testified about the traffic stop of the defendant by the Tennessee State Troopers. They also got that on the body-worn camera. During the stop, Kilmar acknowledged he'd been driving over the speed limit, and he had an expired driver's license. No citations for either one of those. See if you get the benefit of the doubt when that happens to you. He also stated that the car belonged to his boss and was later identified through vehicle registration records to be a man named Jose Hernandez Reyes, who had been previously convicted of illegal entry and smuggling. Agent Joseph in court also highlighted several false statements that Kilmar gave during the traffic stop, including that his passengers were construction crew. There was no luggage. There was no construction tools around anywhere. There were a 4th row of seats back there. He was carrying 9 passengers. It was like a bus. The state troopers then created a roster of the passengers by instructing them to write down their names, dates of birth, and residences. From the video, Trooper tells Kilmar, you know, of course, this is 65 going through here. He says, I know, I go to 70. He says, going 70? Yeah, what's the limit right now? 70 or 65? He says, it's 65. Oh, whose car is it? It's through my boss. Your boss? My boss, yeah. So the problem with my license right now is it's expired. Oh, it's suspended? It's suspended. Wow, right? So not expired. There's a difference between suspended and expired. Like you might have an expired license because you didn't get a new photo or something, right? You got to go in there, get a new photo every so often. So, okay, it's expired. You didn't get a new one, but it's not suspended. Suspended means it's a real problem. Now, at the time of the hearing, Agent Joseph had confirmed that 6 of the 9 9 passengers were nationals of Mexico, Honduras, and El Salvador who were illegally in the United States on the date of the traffic stop. Notably, 2 of the aliens had been previously apprehended by Border Patrol just 24 days before the traffic stop. Despite having been returned to Mexico following their apprehension, they had already crossed back into the United States. They didn't care. Now, one of the alien passengers in Kilmar's vehicle listed a birth date in 2007 and was only 15 years old. Agent Joseph further testified, and the judge looked at that. He's like, well, that 7 kind of looks like a 1, so that makes him a much older. Agent Joseph further testified that Kilmar's SUV did not hit any LPRs in St. Louis during the entire year, the license plate reader, but did register a hit in Texas in November, 12 days before the traffic stop, and another hit in Texas, Louisiana, 6 days before the traffic stop. So this dude was smuggling at the border. Agent Joseph next told the judge about several cooperator witnesses who were all interviewed. One person, another, and another. One advised that he met Kilmar in Maryland in 2016 and then literally hired him to do smuggling. That's a pretty primary witness right there. His primary source of customers was from a foreign national based in Central or South America, and the business involved transporting illegals. Witness 1 described how he and Kilmar confiscated cell phones, how they made stories like, oh, we're just doing construction here. Also described how they would regularly travel with close family members and children, and the children would sit on the floorboards to generate a higher revenue stream, and the children would be covered. Also described a conflict because Kilmar abused adult and minor female aliens. Wild, man. Now, CW1 also described learning about the traffic stop. Agent Joseph, when he was testifying to the judge, confirmed that on November 30th during the traffic stop, this is who he called. Kilmar called that dude. We watched the video. He also indicated that the defendant had previously been stopped while transporting illegals in other places. So in Virginia, also stopped on Interstate I-81, right? I wonder if they're investigating that. At the evidentiary hearing on July 16th coming up, the government intends to introduce call detail records provided by Verizon that show a cell phone used by the defendant Kilmar making multiple calls to this guy before, during, and after the traffic stop by Tennessee, right? So he was on the other end of the call, and now he's testifying against Kilmar. Notably, Agent Joseph located a traffic citation, man, nailed it, that is consistent with this testimony. In fact, the witness stated that Kilmar typically got between $1,000 and $1,500 per trip. So when he got stopped in Virginia, those cops actually gave him a ticket. They probably didn't call the FBI, and the FBI didn't say let him go. They just gave him a ticket, sent him on his way. And that might be why he is suspended. Like, he might have a unpaid speeding ticket from Virginia that he just, I forget, I don't care. But they marked his number, and then it transferred over and suspended his other license, and he's like, okay, I don't care, I'm illegal. During the November traffic stop, he possessed an envelope with $1,400 in cash, baby. Now, witness 1 was not aware of any physical evidence of the membership in MS-13, but added that asking those types of questions can be dangerous. He also stated that Kilmar really liked guns, but initially stated they would have not transported them because of the risk. Now, during a follow-up interview, however, witness 1 stated that he regularly gave guns to his driver and had given 1 or 2 guns to Kilmar, which Kilmar transported back to Maryland. Witness 1 also was moved to a federal halfway house and has been granted deferred deportation so that he would be available as a witness at trial. Now, the judge is saying, see, this is just pressure. Like, they're just trying to make this dude come out and testify against Kilmar. They're going to give him a smoking deal. They're not going to deport him because they're going to bias his testimony, is what the defense is saying. But he was on the other end of the call. Like, he is a very credible witness because he was working with him and got the phone call. Importantly, witness 1 admitted that he and Kilmar routinely transported minor female aliens during this conspiracy. This is the Democrats' hero. This is the cause. This is what they're standing up for. They flew down to meet with this guy. Further, witness 1 also advised that he had received a complaint from Kilmar that he acted sexually inappropriate to the minors. During this testimony, the judge incorrectly sustained an objection on hearsay grounds, which cut off the testimony. The judge doesn't want to hear it. I don't want to hear him molesting women or girls, despite the fact that the federal rules of evidence do not apply at a detention hearing. So you're not going to object to hearsay. You're allowed to have hearsay. It's not a trial. It's a detention hearing. The magistrate judge later in the hearing reversed her ruling on that objection. Yeah. So then CW2 advised that he met the defendant in Maryland. Another witness, 2019. Witness 2 personally observed Kilmar and his participation in human smuggling. During at least one smuggling trip, witness 2 also observed him trafficking narcotics, stating that Kilmar trafficked drugs, and he told Kilmar, if you traffic drugs during the alien smuggling trips, that's bad for business. So just do one or the other. Similarly, on 3 alien smuggling trips, this witness also observed Kilmar purchase 5 guns guns, including handguns and assault rifles, which the Kilmar then concealed in the vehicle under children's belongings in the rear of the car. Witness 2 also similarly noted that Kilmar appeared to be very familial with gang members that were being smuggled by the organization. Hey, what's up, bros? CW2, the witness, also confirmed that drivers in the smuggling organization were typically be paid between $1,000 and $1,500 per load of 8 to 10 aliens per trip. That was consistent with the $1,400 they found in his envelope. Witness 2 was also under federal indictment and expressed hope for judicial consideration in exchange for this. The United States has not filed any motion or any substantial assistance to him in this case. Importantly, in addition to stating law enforcement that he had firsthand knowledge, he also received complaints by a co-conspirator that Kilmar had been inappropriate with minor girls during the transport. We have a female witness called NV. She's referred to as NV during the hearing. She was a confidential informant that had previously been compensated in exchange for providing information to law enforcement, and she stated that she had met with Kilmar in Maryland and believed him to be a member of MS-13 based on her personal experiences with the rival gang known as 18th Street. NV, this witness, also learned about Kilmar's involvement in smuggling because she was asked to join him. NV also described how Kilmar asked her for nude images when she was only 15 years old. No wonder the Democrats love this dude. CW3, who is female, was also interviewed about her role in the smuggling organization. She said that she participated in the human smuggling conspiracy with Kilmar, had relationships with other cooperating witnesses that were also mentioned, observed Kilmar bring family members and children with him in order to conceal his criminal activities, also testify in this case. And finally, we had another witness, Ford, was also interviewed about her role in the human smuggling organization. She was responsible for finances, deposits, and bookkeeping. She was responsible for the wire transfers between the conspirators, and the organization attempted to avoid law enforcement by using multiple people to move the money around. And so we got those witnesses who all came out and testified, and the judge said, I don't really care. I'm going to listen to some affidavit about pupusas. So the magistrate judge's order, the lower level judge, right? This is going up to Crenshaw, which is the higher level judge, but the lower level judge issued the ruling, and then Crenshaw basically affirmed the lower level ruling. So they're trying to cut that one out, saying the magistrate judge found that the government was not entitled to a detention hearing and found that the charged offenses also did not involve a minor victim, saying, well, involves, like, what does involves mean? Remember, she was like, well, it's like, how is that any different than a father who takes his son across state lines without wearing a seatbelt, is what she said. Well, what's the difference? Does that involve a minor? Yeah, I mean, it kind of does, actually. Yeah, it does. Means something more than related to or something less than necessarily entails. We read through this. She turned herself into a pretzel on this one. And as a result, she said that involves was broad enough for a court to consider the conduct of the offense, but would not include cases with minor children. Like, involving minor children means, like, you know, something more than just like putting them on a floorboard. Now, turning to the government, the judge then found that the evidence was not sufficient to find smuggling of minors. The judge questioned the reliability of the roster. She says, actually, that 7 looks like a 1. Remember? She's like, oh, that 2007 looks like 01. So I'm going to find he's older. She also questioned the reliability of the government's witnesses. She said, well, I'm going to give them little weight because they're going to benefit. They're going to get good deals if they cooperate with the DOJ in their cases. And finally, even assuming the government was entitled to a detention hearing, she said that there were conditions of release that could make sure he comes back. She gave very little weight to the government's evidence from cooperating witnesses and didn't care that it involves minor victims, guns, or drugs. Also, the judge didn't even care about the orders of protections that Jennifer Vasquez, his wife now, filed against him. Mental health, anger management, said that he would eliminate her and could eliminate her and nobody would even know. The judge found that conditions could be crafted to prevent him from abusing people. So the judge gave significant weight to the lack of his criminal records and his prior employment as a sheet metal apprentice in a fake job. Although Kilmar offered no proof at the hearing that was subject to cross-examination, the judge gave significant weight to his supposedly strong ties to Maryland, which was described in a single letter from a social service agency. Okay, so just put everything we just talked about on one side of the scale. Kilmar submitted a social service agency called CASA, some stupid letter from them. We love Kilmar. He's a good person. As a result, the magistrate judge denied the government's motion and said, we're going to release this dude. They say this is totally nonsense. The government, in fact, is entitled to a hearing. This judge failed to properly consider all of the government's evidence. He is a flight risk, okay? He was involved in a years-long operation to smuggle minors. He trafficked kids, made improper sexual advances towards adults and minors. We've got a witness of a 15-year-old girl who's saying Kilmar wants nudies. The defendant's successful attempts to evade delayed law enforcement detection in the past, using forbidden routes and other routes, forbidding cell phones, making false statements to the cops, continuing to participate in the smuggling scheme even after being stopped in Virginia and Tennessee, multiple orders of protections for beating his wife and scaring the kids, and more. The judge didn't care, placed undue weight on his sheet metal work, and because somebody sent a letter that he's a good person. Simply put, the judge failed to meaningfully scrutinize the evidence in favor of detention. And while the judge's opinion questioned and doubted the significance of our evidence, didn't consider the records as a whole, and completely abdicated her duty, and spent a lot of time trying to say, well, this was a minor victim, and it's not actually a minor victim. But here, yeah, the magistrate judge, this lower level judge, the weirdest thing, went through this theoretical and fanciful factual scenario that involved transporting seafood and traveling to pay child support. Remember that? Like, what if a father's like hauling a bunch of shrimp across state lines and didn't pay his child support? Does that involve a minor victim? What are you talking about? In this case, there were kids on floorboards. That's not somebody failing their child support. So she tried to say that involved didn't apply in this case, and so it doesn't involve minors. We don't have to keep him in custody, because if it involves a minor, then it's mandatory. In this case, the government offered testimony describing statements. Multiple witnesses said minor girls were being transported and abused. Okay, that involves a minor. The evidence about the sexual interest and attempt to exploit teenage girls also shows that there's evidence and corroborates the fact that he was abusing the minors that he was smuggling in. And so this weird interpretation that this judge adopted is just simply wrong. The formulation comes from other cases. She has no idea what she's talking about. And our detention evidence at the hearing in favor of fighting for a detention hearing provided a bunch of information saying these witnesses describe their own firsthand knowledge. They say, oh yeah, no, we saw him, like firsthand witnesses to this. He was involved in a conspiracy to smuggle because we were involved in it too. And there were minors and unaccompanied minors that were there. Both witness 1 and 2 arise and describe the conflict about him being inappropriate towards minor females. 2 of them corroborating it. They also told law enforcement how Kilmar used his own children during the trips to cover up for his illegal activity, exploitation of a minor. And the testimony also has been corroborated in multiple different ways. We got these statements corroborated by NV. She says, I was 15, this dude was creeping on me. There was a roster of passengers, another 15-year-old there. The SUV they were driving belonged to CW1, who is a convicted smuggler himself. Kilmar called the convicted smuggler his boss, literally, in the video. Then he, on body camera, tells the state trooper, I'm gonna call my boss. And the Verizon records say, oh yeah, his boss is a convicted smuggler. He, when one was arrested in 19, he had a cell phone and had a phone number that was used by Kilmar, and that phone number was called Kilmar Chauffeur. The government contends that this reflected the defendant Kilmar functioned as a driver, which is chauffeur, as driver for the smuggling operation. Kilmar Chauffeur. Got the T and the L wrong. Now, additionally, or he just made it, just changed it up, so if you search for Kilmar, you're not going to find it. Now, additionally, the crimes alleged in the indictment is captured on video. In the body-worn camera footage, all of that is introduced. It's extremely rare that after a reviewing court has the opportunity to watch a video of a defendant caught red-handed in the act of committing a federal crime to let him go, but that's exactly what this happened here. Evidence showed. We had the exact evidence. Now, in addition to being direct, literally non-hearsay evidence, it's evidence of the crime, of the defendant committing the crimes, the body-worn camera footage and the investigation based on video corroborates all of the other testimony. There was also $1,400 in cash. Aftermarket seat was visibly present where they were shoving additional illegals back in the back of the car. And also at the evidentiary hearing coming up in July, the government intends to introduce paper records showing that Kilmar used this phone number in question, which was subscribed to in the name of his wife. Now, also the fact that multiple individuals were illegally in the United States who were in the back of his car. He lied about where he was. There were no tools or luggage. License plate reader shows this guy was lying about where he was coming and going from. All of this corroboration shows by at least a preponderance of the evidence. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. We're at the very beginning stage of this. Says that the witnesses were being truthful. Their evidence corroborates other evidence and validates it. Now, in summary, this court has a strong basis to credit the evidence the government obtained from these witnesses. The record from the bail hearing was also supplemented to show. But this court just screwed up. Involving a minor and creating a sliding scale is inappropriate. This judge was also speculating, engaging in speculation, saying, well, 2007 really could be 2001. The roster says it's 07. The judge also heard that 3 former members of the alien smuggling operation all said minors were involved. All 3 later testified under oath. This evidence taken together makes it more likely than not it's 07. The dude's a minor. However, the judge did not even consider the evidence holistically. She She took evidence piecemeal, knocked out each piece of evidence individually because she loves child traffickers. The judge also created a scale of reliability and said the government's witnesses are now being biased because they're getting deals, and also said this is hearsay evidence. But hearsay is acceptable during a bail hearing. Hello. As a result of her refusal to give proper weight, all of that decision was improper. And she also gave no weight to the fact that the government produced a literal video of the list that was being created. And the judge's opinion that this evidence was crucial is completely baseless, saying, well, they missed some of the crucial evidence. They don't need that. And her qualms about the reliability of evidence also don't measure up. Now, Kilmar should be detained. If the court finds that this government is entitled to a hearing, the record developed here shows this dude is a menace. In assessing whether bail conditions are reasonable, we have to consider a bunch of things: mental condition, family ties, and more. All those factors say Kilmar needs to be locked up. The proper question before this court: can any set of circumstances or conditions secure this dude's appearance or make sure he's not a flight risk? They say the law says no. If he's released, he faces a simple choice: flee the United States to avoid prosecution, or no matter what happens, he's being removed. Even if he wins his criminal case, he's being removed. So if you let him go, his best option is to flee because he's leaving the country either way. The defendant also has an incentive to choose a third path: escape, go into the interior of the country. Multiple co-conspirators say that he's smuggled people before, made sexual overtures towards a lot of people. He's also tried to avoid law enforcement. Other testimony saying he was driving 9 illegals in a modified SUV, has a boss, and more. So the incentive to flee is amplified by the exposure he faces at sentencing. Many crimes involving minors, including trafficking, have serious penalties. And here, with alien smuggling, these are all aggravating factors: molesting young girls and more. And so to resolve this conflict, though, the judge inappropriately relied on the paucity of proof and a social organization who wrote him a letter. And the fact is, Kilmar's a danger to the community. He transported guns, was involved in a smuggling community, transported females, minors, abused them, abused his wife, string of abuses, slapped his wife, broke her phone, locked the kids in the room, broken phones before, broken TV, smashed the son's tablet. 4 other instances where this dude's been troubling and violent. And so according to the petition, she said, we read it, that he told her, I could eliminate you and nobody could do anything about it. She said, the wife, that it's recorded that even if he kills me, no one can do anything to him. She said she recorded it. He punched her, scratched her, ripped off her shirt, grabbed her, bruised her, all the things. Judge didn't care. Says, well, that's okay. It's too remote. All of that stuff is just too far. It's old. So what? It's old domestic violence. The government says that's totally ridiculous. Nobody else would get these benefits. We read through it. We're like, oh my gosh. Could you imagine criminal defense attorneys? If you got judges like this, like for your clients, all you have to do is like send in a sticky note. Motion to modify release conditions. Just a sticky note. Just write a letter from like some nonprofit. My client's a good person. Send that in. Judge's like, what? Can't argue with that. Let him out. No, that would never happen to citizens, only to illegals. Here, respectfully submitted, acting U.S. attorney into the court, and we know that this judge is not going to reverse it. So once Judge Crenshaw denies this, then we'll see what Trump wants to do in terms of appealing it, but submitting it to this judge to reverse the magistrate judge, we'll see where that goes. But that's the latest in the Kilmar case, and the DOJ going after the lower level judge, rightfully so. We'll keep our eye on this one. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do.